Welcome to our last session on how to make it in communications. And I have two true communications queens with me today. Our panel is going to be quite hybrid because Sascha Regina is going to tune in from beautiful Tyrol, and Maggie Childs is with me here in the studio. So Maggie was born and raised in New York, moved to Vienna as a teenager, and has been in journalism, TV, and media publishing. And I'm really curious to hear about your experience because you're not only now having your own cross-media publishing company, you also initiated the first English language magazine in Austria called Metropol. And on top of that, you're on the board of the nonprofit organization Austrian Startups. And Sascha, being in beautiful Tyrol right now, originally from South Africa, she is moving between the UK and Austria currently, right now with a nice bikini picture in the background I see. Sascha is the founder of Brand Sascha and Brand Your Soul. She's an author, business and brand strategist, and she's also the mother of 3 wonderful children. So I'd like to, give the stage to you two to just introduce yourselves because I most probably forgot half of the things you've already done in communications. So Maggie, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Essentially, I've worked in the media industry for most of my adult life, and in various echelons of it. So everything from wire journalism, which is really hard news, to more lifestyle-y things like travel writing, and also travel books I've done as well. And getting into the space I'm in now really had a lot to do with my own experience as an international person, living in a place where I didn't speak the language at the beginning, where I had to kind of get used to, the culture and all these things, and also watching my mom go through that process. So like a lot of what we do now at Metropol and what my main kind of force is in my business and what I do has to do with helping people live and work where they want to live and work.
That's beautiful. So your mom also was your inspiration to go into communications.
She's a very big inspiration to me, still every day, even now as a pensioner. She's still an inspiring force, absolutely.
Wow, nice. A strong woman being an inspiration. Beautiful, thank you. Sascha, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, well, you pretty much said it all. Basically, in terms of layman's terms, working in business and brand, mainly working on your messaging and communication, obviously to get that to your true audience. Yeah, traveling around the world, speaking, doing workshops in terms of communication and how to better communicate between employees and corporate, small businesses and audiences, startups and audiences, and yeah, pretty much.
And now enjoying the mountains of Tyrol.
Thank God, the hills are alive.
Beautiful. Before we go into audience questions, I would love to clarify what communications actually means to you. Because for me, communications is, it ranges from marketing to social media, PR, media in general, events. You come more from the journalism background. Sascha, you're more from the branding, messaging background. What does communications entail for you?
Well, if you take it a little bit literally, so the word communication comes from the same stem as community, so the commune part of it. And I think that has a lot to do with how journalism can be seen now in the 21st century. With every journalism brand, whether you're a blogger or an influencer who just produces content themselves, or if you're part of a bigger media organization that has a voice, the people that you're speaking to are the community of that voice. So I think that's a really important thing to think about when you communicate. Which community are you speaking to as a communicator? Understanding your community is the key to good communication.
Beautiful. I never thought about it that way, that it's actually about the community. But I'm also, a rookie in that sense in some ways. Okay. Sascha, how is it for you? How would you define communications?
Margaret, I love that you mentioned the community because that's the main purpose of communications. What we tend to focus on in the way I see it and the way I've experienced it is we are conditioned to see communications mainly in terms of profession and not in terms of threefold, which is body, mind, and soul. The mind part is all the profession, so we know that it's all the layman's things, all the profession. It's the PR, the media, the branding, the marketing, the copywriting, videos and stuff. But we often don't go into communications in terms of the body, or as women, when we walk into a room, we're able to read a room 99% of the time, whereas when masculine energy walks into a room, they dominate it. And how to balance that and working and understanding how communications and building a community, whether it be in a small room where you one-on-one, or doing workshops, or where you writing, copywriting, or someone writes something on a post, and how to answer it without creating a big shitstorm. Am I allowed to swear? I swear like a sailor. Sorry.
Too late now.
So, and that for me is communications working threefold, body, mind, and soul, and not just from one perspective, but seeing the holistic point of the view of it, to build a community, to rise as a community through the generations.
Beautiful. I mean, we're live. Everyone heard you using that word, but I think that's okay.
We're all adults.
Yeah. When it comes to the messaging part that you mentioned, what makes brands exciting to you? Or how do you create those messages for companies and also individuals?
That's a great question, Madis. So from a traditional point of view, what people tend to, where I've come from, is creating your audience and the messaging according to demographics and psychographics. And that just didn't work for me. I wanted to go deeper, I wanted to go higher, wider, whatever it is, however you see it. And I wanted to create the messaging for a brand that creates generational wealth, which is knowledge. And how you can do that is by going even deeper within the person, the brand, the face behind the brand, and what that person is bringing to the table. Because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's not the why because of, for example, you selling a product, I don't know, cups or mugs or something to that effect. There's a reason why you're actually doing that. And the reason you start it isn't the reason that you actually carry through with it over the time. And the messaging is more about knowing your purpose, your life purpose, not your profession, because we multi-passionate and we have lots of things that we want to bring to the table, and your vision and your why.
That's beautiful. And I absolutely agree with that, because I'm also right now really living according to my purpose with the female factor. So what is your why? And why did you get into journalism? And I know you have also a very strong personal brand.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, because kind of what I said before about the, I think people should be able to live and work where they want to. I think that's also really important because having certain strengths doesn't always mean you're born in the right place where those strengths are admired, Especially, I mean, we as women all know that there are certain countries in which women can work and there are certain countries in which women can't work, Or, I mean, I've recently been to Japan. Japan's a very, very, progressive country, but at the same time, women in management, not a thing. Women in leadership, not a thing. Men refuse to apply for jobs where women would be their boss. So there are certain ways in which that, to me, just seems like part of the human rights that we should give people. And so that's kind of become a little bit my life goal, is to help people, help make that process easier, getting visas, being able to work somewhere, all that kind of stuff. What got me into journalism is totally different. But
what was the spark? What got you in there?
The spark was, I was 19 and I was studying philosophy of economics, and my mom thought that doesn't end in a job. And she told me I needed to get an internship because philosophy, nobody's going to hire a philosopher to think. So I fished around for internships, and there was one going for the AP, Associated Press, and it's a 1-month unpaid internship. What can happen, right? I thought, okay, I'll just go there every day, and eventually they'll let me leave, and and I'll have it in my CV. My mom will be happy. So my third day on the job, they sent me to a press conference, and I arrived there, and CNN was there, Al Jazeera was there, the whole freaking world was at this press conference, and I was like, oh my God, and I'm 19, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I call my boss, and I say, hey, what do I, what am I supposed to do? Everybody's here, like, this is a big deal. And he's like, okay, do not hang up this phone, tell me what's going on. And he's already typing, I can hear him typing already, urgent, urgent. And I'm like, okay, so there's a girl and she's been stuck in a cellar for like 8 years, and then she like escaped, and there's this guy and he's like on the loose, and like, oh my God. And like I said, literally just yelling into my phone. So this was a huge story in Austrian media. It was Natascha Kampusch. It was,
oh, wow.
This was, yeah, back in the day. Of course, my colleagues at the AP had no idea, like they had no way of knowing that this was going to be a big story, so they sent the little intern, right? Because they were all busy doing big news, right? Turns out my story was the biggest story that day, not only for that day, for the 3 weeks afterwards. And my boss, George Jan, who I still love overall, he's became my biggest mentor, my biggest kind of believer in me as a journalist, because he also he didn't accept no as an answer. He was like, okay, you're going to get in a cab now, you're going to go report on this stuff. And he kept me on the story for all 3 weeks that they were doing the kind of urgent coverage. And I got a byline in the next day in the Wall Street Journal. Front page.
Wow, that is impressive. And
you know, in German you say, man hat Blut gerochen. Like I tasted blood. I needed more.
but I can so connect with that, because if one incident or one person can totally shape the direction of your career.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. And it was just a 1-month internship. Wow.
I know. So do your internships, ladies.
Okay. Sashka, did you do any internships? Did that spark anything? For your dad? Oh, no?
Oh, no, yes, I did an internship, but it didn't spark anything. It just made me want to ask why. Why are you doing it like this? Isn't there another way? I want to find a different way.
Okay. Oh. Any other spark that you can share with the world?
So I strongly believe in the thing always leads to the thing. So my ultimate dream was to go to Hollywood and be famous Hollywood actress. So that was the goal. And I didn't land up in Hollywood, but I landed up in Scotland. And the thing always led to the thing. And then it got me interested in marketing, got me interested in advertising, and I started getting into that. But the main thing was really psychology, human behavior, human development, how humans think, why they think, how they think, in terms of body, mind, and soul. And that was the spark for me, because it's part of my purpose as well, part of my why as well.
Beautiful. Now let's see what our ladies out there have in terms of questions for you. I see the first one being, how do you stand out and increase your visibility in your industry? Maggie, do you want to go ahead?
That's super important. It's so important. I mean, it's important in anything, in any industry, but in communications, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to communicate, right? So it's very important that if you want to be a voice in your industry, you have to do a lot of communicating. And that means also outside of your brand, outside of your comfort zone, let's put it that way, and outside of your readership, you have to get visibility for your why, as Sashka so nicely put it, but also for your community. So if you're writing, for instance, in our case, a magazine for people who don't speak the language in the place that they live in, right? Then raising awareness for international talent, how important it is to help people on their way to integration, which is a terrible word, to feeling good about where they live and feeling at home. That whole then kind of world of thinking has to become something that you communicate everywhere you are, whether you're on a panel, on a stage, speaking at a conference, moderating a conference, whatever it is. A lot of people in media end up also moderating and doing things like that. It's really important to take that message with you wherever you go, and never say no to a gig. Never say no to a gig. I mean, unless it's people that are totally, I don't know, fascist or something, but yeah.
I mean, that's often easier said than done. Do you think if you're not an extrovert, you will have it will be tough to have that visibility or create that visibility?
I think there are two kinds of performers. I think there are extroverted performers, and there are performers that put on a role, and that's totally fine. One of the best speakers I know is one of my managing editors who has a stutter, but he only has a stutter when he doesn't have a microphone in front of him. When he has a microphone in front of him, he's a different person and he can change it. He can just turn it. I don't know how he does it, but still, when I get, if I get mad at him or ask him about a deadline or why isn't this in yet, he'll start stuttering and it just comes right back. But it's people are able to do that. So if you know you're an introvert and you get the chance, though, to speak about what's important to you and what's important to your business, take that chance, prepare for it, get yourself ready, find the character that you know you need to be on stage and make yourself into that.
Interesting. Very good point. So it's a good trick. Sascha, how do you, maintain your visibility? Do you also speak at a lot of events and conferences? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I believe you're an extrovert.
I'm an ambivert. I'm both. So I love the stage. I love speaking. I love putting it out there, but I also like to retract, go away to come back again. Because I give a lot of energy, and once my cup is empty, I need to go and fill it again. So then I go into introvert and I need to fill it again. So I find the balance between the two. In terms of visibility, just coming back to the community, is even though wherever you speak, or if it's journalism or being interviewed, or the question that came, how to build your visibility?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really leading with your why and your purpose, and being anchored in that, so you don't sway off the path, your path, to stay in your lane and not changing state, because it's so easy to get influenced by others that are in the industry where you feel I'm comparing myself with them because they better than me, but rather seeing it as they further than me in terms of knowledge or experience and how you can learn from it. And always staying true to your authentic truth and moving forward with that, whatever that purpose and that why is. And the visibility is just tools that you're using, whether it be a website or blogging or interviews or workshops or Instagram or writing posts or lives or whatever that is. Those are just instruments where you can put yourself forward as a conduit for whatever you're putting forward, your message that you're putting forward. And being visible is just showing up consistently. Whatever it is, just showing up consistently and not comparing yourself.
And how do you define that USP and then also deliver it? Do you have to go to workshops to define that for yourself, for your why, for your personal brand? And then what are the literal steps that you need to take once you have that to gain visibility and deliver the USP that you haven't communicated to the outside?
Is that to me or Margaret?
Yeah, Sascha.
All right. So I really don't like that word USP, probably because I've heard it so many times. Those that don't know it, unique selling proposition and unique selling point. I feel, this is just my experience and what I've gone through, is that knowing what your purpose is, and it's the overarching, your life purpose, and knowing what your why is what helps you to move forward and put yourself out there in terms of visibility. And then you mix it. It's a symphony, it's an orchestra. You mix it with your values and your beliefs and your personality, how you want to bring it across. Like we were speaking, some people are more extrovert. I'm an edutainer, so I like to educate and entertain at the same time. Some people are just standing solid on the stage or in front of a camera and are more quiet and a little bit more reserved, but they still get the message across because it's for their audience and their audience will hear it. But when they alter state, their audience won't be able to hear it because they're putting on a mask and putting that forward. And for myself, my USP is knowing I'm staying in my lane. I know my why, I know my purpose, I know my vision, and it's very hard for me to defer from that lane because I'm so anchored in it. And it's being anchored in that path that helps me create that uniqueness about myself. And I know I'm different. I own it now, whereas before it was seen as a weakness. Now it's a strength. It's like, hello, I'm different. I like being different because my people, my community need to see that different is good and that different is not, you don't need to be enough. Enough is satisfactory, and we don't want to be satisfactory. We want to be different.
Do you agree, Maggie? Is it a strength to be different?
I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, yeah, that's. I think there's a certain conformity that we learn to strive for as teenagers. All of us, the entire humanity, everyone. Puberty does that to you. You try to be like everybody else. And one of the sure signs of, I think, real adulthood, some get it earlier, some get it at 18, some get it at 55, some get it at 80, is to understand that your being who you are is what makes you awesome, and everything else is posturing. So yeah, I could not agree more, Saskia. I think it's great. And what I said before, just to clarify, what I said before about having a role that you play on stage, I don't mean be someone different. I just mean take that part of yourself that doesn't feel okay on stage and then put it in your pocket for a while just to be the on-stage person for that moment. And then you can take it back out and be your introvert when you get off.
Okay. I mean, but nowadays you can just create online content and you don't even really have to be too much on stage. Would you think you can also gain a lot of visibility through that?
We're talking about industry visibility, right? So you want visibility not with your customers, but in your industry.
Yeah.
I think that's a very different value proposition that you're putting out there, right? And really, as Saskia said, yeah, being on stage and being the, delivering your message in whatever way you can is how to do it. If your stage is a virtual stage, sure, I still think it's still important to put something personal out there. If that's words, fine.
Do you feel like there's more competition in the industry now than before?
Well, and generally, we're just, there are more people that are visible in any place at any certain time than ever before, just because information moves so much faster. Yeah. But competition in your industry means you have an exciting industry. So if you have no competition, then do something else.
That is true, yeah. And how do you deliver your USP? I know Saskia hates the word USP, but...
Not hate, just don't like it that much.
Well, I kind of agree with Saskia because unique is such a snowflake word, Like, our selling proposition is delivering the service that our readers need, serving our readers, serving our community. If our community's needs change, our service changes. So listening to our community is really our USP. And how do we deliver on that? We listen. We do it on every way possible. I mean, we create media, we give guidance, and we also have events. So we help people network and whatever. And you guys are similar at Philo Factory. You have various ways in which you help people connect. And I think that's the vital part, is really remembering, as Saskia said, also this your purpose is always at the back of every moment in which you interact with your customer. And if people want to meet in real life, they come to our events. If they want to get guidance on their moving to Vienna, for instance, they go for our guidance products. And if they want to know what's going on in town, they subscribe to 𝗵𝗆. It's something. Delivering on it means also listening. We get a lot of love mail, hate mail, all kinds of mail, and we respond to absolutely every single one of them, and we take them all seriously, even when they're a little bit dodgy. But it's important to take your customers seriously.
Absolutely. And because you build a community, you also have a broad network. How do you utilize your network to move forward and move yourself forward, but also your business?
Remember people's names.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's that, I think everyone's favorite word in whatever language they speak is their first name. I promise you. And if you remember their name, and if you can also remember what you talked about with them when you met, then you're golden. Like, if you can't remember the name, try to figure out a way to fudge it and get them to introduce themselves to a friend of yours, or I don't know, something like that. But remembering people's names really helps with networking, because you can also, if I need something for a story, right, I can contact someone that I met 3 years ago and be like, I know it's been a while since we talked to each other, but I remember you telling me about a project that you were involved in. Could you get me the CEO's email? Just because we met that one time at that one party and remembered what it was They were like, oh, of course, yeah, people are glad to do things for you if you show them that you remembered them and they remember that you made them feel good.
Everyone wants to be seen and wants to be heard.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Sashka, are you a good name rememberer? Do you have any trick for that?
I am a good name rememberer. That's a nice word. Margaret, I love that you mentioned that, is to remember somebody's name. The name is, connected also with the energy. So when I remember somebody's name for myself, I remember the energy, and how I connect with that person. How do we feel in that moment where we're talking? Are we connecting with the eyes? How's it going? What's the body language? And in that respect of the networking, that's what I remember. And then I put the energy to a face and a name then to the face moving forward. Because I remember that the most. And the people I remember the most are the people that are the quietest for me, because that's part of my why. And it burns even stronger for myself. So I remember them the most. They're the most vivid in my mind.
Do you have any crazy or funny story around that, meeting someone that you remembered that then became maybe a new opportunity? Or Maggie, any one of you?
I could think of some.
You've got stories.
Okay. I don't know. So when I first started 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗶, you shouldn't start a media, anybody who wants to start a media company, you should not start a media company without launch funding. Don't do it. I did it, wasn't fun. But I thought I was going to get launch funding. So I was pitching to all these investors, as one does. I had no idea how to do this because I came out of philosophy, right? And nobody knows how to do this. So I was making all the rookie mistakes. And I walked into this guy's office, and he's a big shot, really beautiful, massive office. His office is bigger than my apartment. And I walk in there, and there's this conference table and whatever, and I sit down and I make my pitch, and I had 15 minutes with the guy, right? So I make my pitch, about 5 minutes, and then he asks a couple questions, and by the end of the pitch, and then he says, okay, and he stands up, and I stand up, and he says, well, I'd invest in you in a second, but I really don't understand media industry. And I looked over at his desk, and I said, so on your desk, I see all these magazines and newspapers, and I see open on your screens, you have a bunch of news sites open. So basically, these news sites and these magazines are creating content for your eyes, and then they're selling your attention to advertisers. That's how media works. And I'm sure you know that, And I said, and then he looked at me, he was just like, And then he asked a couple other questions, and I just didn't leave. And so he said, look, I have an appointment, da-da-da-da. So please make an appointment with my secretary. So I go to the secretary, I make another appointment. I show up, it was 2 days later, and it was an evening appointment, and it was in a cafe. And so I was like, okay, this is outside of the office, this is weird. So I get there, and he stands up from the table to greet me and sticks out his hand. He says, Maggie Childs, I was so impressed with your pitch. And I was like, really? And he's like, no one has ever done that before. And I was like, what? He's like, usually when I stand up, they leave. Like, nobody's ever just stuck around. And I said, well, because you said something that wasn't true. You said you didn't understand media. And I didn't want to let that just stand there. You don't want to look like an idiot. And we have become the best of friends since then. And he never invested in my company. And,
oh no, okay.
But that's fine. He has been there for me as a mentor and as a helper, and he's introduced me to people. He's a very powerful person, and that helps a lot. And if somebody believes in you because you stood your ground and you acted just like Sashka said, also, really just sticking with who you are and being who you are sometimes, and showing your passion for what you're doing, makes people believe in you. And that's something, it's embarrassing and it's stupid, but if it weren't for him, I think it would have gone a lot slower with building up 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗶.
Wow. And not taking no as an answer.
Also important.
Yeah. Sashka, did you have any potential business partners that turned into friends or turned into mentors?
Always. Always meeting somebody along the line and just connecting with them, because at the end of the day, we breathe the same air and we're all the same people. We're just we're just further along on the path that we are. I'm not going to name drop, but yeah, so yes.
No name dropping here.
Aww, I was so excited.
We have 400 people watching,
So, and it, you know, and it doesn't just have to be personally. I've had a lot of connections with really, really great people just via WhatsApp, because that's the future of communications, is that we talk in emojis and very short sentences and audio. And it's where we're moving towards. It's the younger generation. I feel so old, but you know, that's how they communicate. You don't hold the phone to the ear or anything. You speak audio. You speak to Alexa. You speak with emojis. And I've built my relationships and networking like that as well, through messaging.
Speaking of, you know, your younger self, what's one challenge that you had to overcome and it was maybe a mistake on your side that you wouldn't do again? Any tip you can share there?
Me or Margaret?
Sashka.
Me. I believe in mistakes. I love the interview with Sarah Blakely, where she grew up and her dad at dinner, the whole family would always say, so what have you failed at today? That was the topic. And if you hadn't failed, he'd be disappointed. Because making mistakes is the thing that gets you to the thing, to get you to the thing. So if you don't make those mistakes, you're not going to get anywhere. So I don't regret anything. Sometimes I think, dang, could have been easier. Could have been easier if I'd known this one freaking thing that I learned 5 years later. But I had to learn that within my journey, especially for my true audience, because I need to know my community, my people, in order to lead them better. I need to know them in order to experience it first. So, no, I'm all right with the mistakes. Although it can be very...
Makes you who you are. Maggie, any mistakes that you should definitely not do in communications?
Mistakes, oh gosh. The biggest mistake you can make in communicating is not knowing your audience. I think that's also the only mistake. If you know your audience, it's very hard, unless you're completely, I don't know, emotionally blind, it's very hard to miscommunicate. But also knowing your audience means a lot more than just like looking at your Google Analytics data and guessing, right? You really have to meet the people and you have to talk to them. Focus groups, I can underline this 1,000 times, focus groups are way cooler than surveys. If anybody tells you the opposite, please. Surveys are great when you need to know like data as in blood types or things like that. But if you want to know how people feel and why they feel that way, you need to do focus groups and you need to ask follow-up questions. It's super, super important. And communicating is not a one-way street. Communicating is dialogue. And if you don't listen, then obviously you're not going to be able to speak to people.
Absolutely. No, listening is, I think, in so many industries, one of the most important things.
Sales, also super important for sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't got to tell you,
Yeah, no, I know, for sure. There's another question from the audience. How do you get comfortable with promoting yourself? And, you know, at first it might be odd to put yourself out there all the time. How did you experience that, Sashka?
When I first experienced it, I first went into business as a business consultant, and the perception of business consultants is that they're sharks, and there isn't a very good perception around it because they just want to tell you what to do, and most companies are just kind of like, I know I need you, but I don't really want to have you. And walking into that arena really puts you on the spot and helped me through all the mistakes that I made then, because you come with all your marketing strategies and people are like, I don't really want that. But working through that, pushing through the fear and just coming to the other side and learning to listen to what the audience is telling you and being able to resonate with it or not. Sometimes people will say things and we need to learn not to, is it mine that I'm taking on when you're listening to them, or is it actually their problem that they need to deal with? And not taking things so personally and being very subjective about it.
Not taking things personally. Very good point that a lot of us struggle with, actually, especially in the beginning of our careers. Now, because time is slowly, you know, coming to an end, I would take one last question and ask you both, what is the single characteristic, and I know it's hard, but what's the single characteristic to brought you where you are today, Maggie?
It's something that actually almost killed me when I was a kid, but I'm pretty fearless. I don't really understand how to deal with fear sometimes. So I don't think I really recognize it as fear. I think that's what it really is. So as a kid, I used to, climb up trees all the way to the top, because there was a top and I wanted to get there, and so I went. This also meant I couldn't really climb down again, probably. And also, like, it made all kinds of problems. Or I jumped off the top of staircases. I did all kinds of crazy stuff just to see what it felt like to fall, But curiosity and fearlessness together is usually kind of lethal. But I think what happens when you're founding a company or founding a new project or venture or anything is that you're confronted constantly with things you don't understand or don't know how to do yet. And if you go at it with, if I don't know how to do it, I have to be afraid of it, kind of that which I don't know I am afraid of automatically, which is what we automatically do as people, just in general. Humanity does that, which is why we're still alive usually, right? But you gotta turn that off when you found a company. You have to be willing to just jump in head first and learn the stuff you don't know how to do. Be very aware of what you're not able to do, and make sure that that's super clear to you, and then just get in there and say, how did other people learn how to do this? Okay, I can do this. Because every step of that process to get to knowing that, you know how to do every step. You just have to start somewhere. And I think a lot of what has, almost everything in my life, I don't have any actual skills, right? Like, I mean, I'm not good at any of the things that you're supposed to be good at in order to do a certain job, right? I didn't go to business school. I wanted to become an actress. Oh, Sasha, when you said that, I was like, I wanted to become an actress. I just was no good at it, right? So the one thing I found out that I was good at was making other people better at what they do. So like building a team then, I realized, oh, this feels great. This feels awesome, because everyone kept getting better, right? And that felt so good. And once you find that thing, then learn how to do that better than anybody else. And trust me, there will be books by people who were better than you are now, and you can learn from them.
But you're very, very good at communications, let me tell you that. So.
Thank you. Also, a skill that can be learned.
Well, good to know that. Sasha, what is, the number one characteristic or trait that you would say brought you here? We got fearless Maggie over here.
Yeah, I would say for me, following is not my strong point. So whenever someone tells me something, you can't do that or do this, I tend not to follow and go the other direction. And I'm very, very curious and always asking why and why until I get to the answer. So if someone tells me, I don't know, you can't be a businesswoman in Austria, or you can only be a businesswoman if you have this license or if you've done this education, I'll be like, why? Well, I'm sure there's a loophole, I'm sure there's a back door, and I'll go out and I'll find it, because only the impossible is possible. I love that from Alice in Wonderland. And that's pretty much what I strive for. That's the characteristic, is that I don't follow, I lead myself, and whoever comes with me, you're in for a freaking ride. And just that curiousness, I love that you said that as well, Margaret. That's the thing, thinking out of the box. Just being curious all the time and listening through that curiosity.
Beautiful. Not following, okay. Would you say that both of you, last question, I know I will stop after this, that your strength is also your weakness at the same time?
Oh, the fearlessness thing, like I said, yeah. It can be very dangerous. Also, what that tends to do, and also the curiosity tends to do to me, is I want to start 6 projects at once. I want my team to be working on all of them at the same time, and I want them all to be done tomorrow. I'm very impatient. I'm very, all kinds of wonderful things that my team loves about me. But yeah,
But good that you're aware of them.
I'm definitely aware. They make me very aware. but it also, project managers then come to me, no. This is impossible. We can't do this. So but it's important to recognize what's negative about it, absolutely. But also, I double check myself. I second guess myself as well. That's important to do, not too much, but it's important to do before you invest a shitload of time and energy. A lot of time and energy. Now I've done it too, Sasha. Okay, we're on equal footing. Yeah, before you invest too much time and energy into something, ask yourself the devil's advocate kind of questions that a partner would ask you. Pretend you're your own partner and see what you would ask yourself.
Very good point. Saskia, is it also your weakness maybe? And how do you keep that under control?
Is that my weakness? I think overthinking is my weakness. I think things to death.
Like the opposite end of the spectrum.
There's a lot to think about. But my mind is a wonderful place. There's a lot happening in my mind, and there's so much to learn, and the thing is always leading to the thing. So that would probably be my weakness, which is also my strength, because it gets me to not follow anyone else, and not anyone else, but to learn from everyone else and to do my own thing. Yeah.
Overthinking, I think that's also a weakness of a lot of us out there. So thank you for joining this hybrid session all the way from Tyrol, but also from New York and Vienna and wherever in Japan you were just before. This was actually our last Q&A session, and Tanya is now going to join me on the stream again, which means that we're coming to the next fun part of today's conference.